Abnormal DNA from this 2,000-year-old mummy revealed a world-shocking secret. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel, my friend. Did you know? The world of archaeology is not just about old bones or crumbling ruins. Sometimes, it tells stories that make us question the very history we once believed to be true. Just think about it. What would happen if a mummy revealed secrets about strange and mysterious rituals? Or if an ancient tomb contained an incredibly detailed family lineage that no one ever expected? And even more unsettling are discoveries suggesting that ancient humans once endured brutal periods far beyond anything we can imagine today. Perhaps what makes these discoveries so extraordinary is not just their historical value, but the mysteries that remain unsolved. There are artifacts that have lain undisturbed for thousands of years, yet no one truly understands their purpose. There are traces suggesting that ancient technologies may have been far more advanced than we once thought, and there are findings that have sparked debates among scientists for decades, without any final conclusion. The deeper we explore, the more we realize that the past is far more complex than what history books have recorded. And perhaps the most terrifying part is not what has already been discovered, but the secrets still buried beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered. So, are you curious to find out what remarkable discoveries archaeologists have made over the years, and what stories and secrets lie behind them? If so, join me in today's video right now. A perfectly preserved bog man reveals a terrifying sacrificial ritual from 2,000 years ago. You know, in the middle of a cold, desolate bog, where thick layers of peat and dark, stagnant water have sat undisturbed for thousands of years, there lies a human body. Not decayed, not dissolved, but astonishingly intact, as if the man had only just died. It's the kind of discovery that sends a chill down anyone's spine just hearing about it. That body belonged to a man found at Lindo Moss, near Wilmslow, Cheshire, England. At first, when he was discovered, people assumed it was just an ordinary set of human remains buried in the bog. But the more archaeologists excavated and scientists analyzed, the more they realized they were facing something far beyond the ordinary. This man, later known as Lindo Man, had been lying in the peat for nearly 2,000 years. Yet his skin, his hair, even his facial features were preserved in remarkable detail. Thanks to this near-perfect preservation, scientists were able not only to determine his age and physical condition, but also to reconstruct the final moments of his life. Lindo Man is believed to have been a healthy young adult, likely in his mid to late 20s. His body showed no signs of heavy physical labor, suggesting he may have belonged to a higher social class at the time. That immediately raised a haunting question. Why would someone like him end up dead in a bog? The answer began to emerge as researchers took a closer look at the injuries on his body. His head had been struck with force. There were marks around his neck indicating strangulation. His ribs and chest showed signs of severe blunt trauma, and there were even traces of cuts. All of this pointed to one chilling conclusion. This was no ordinary death. It appeared to be a deliberate sequence of actions, something ritualistic, carried out with brutal precision. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery wasn't the violence itself, it was what they found inside his stomach. During examination, scientists discovered a piece of partially burned bread that had not yet been fully digested. At first glance, that might seem like an insignificant detail, but in ancient Celtic culture, it could mean everything. According to scholars such as Anne Ross and Don Robbins, in certain sacrificial rituals, victims were chosen through a form of lottery involving pieces of bread. Whoever ended up with the burnt piece would become the sacrifice. Think about that for a moment. It's possible that in his final moments, Lindo Man already knew his fate, holding that fateful piece of bread in his hand. And it doesn't stop there. The injuries on his body suggest he may not have been killed just once, but subjected to what is known as a triple death, a specific form of ritual sacrifice in Celtic belief. Beaten, strangled, and then cut, each act carried out as part of a symbolic offering to the gods. So what were they asking for? One chilling theory suggests that Lindo Man may have been sacrificed to appeal to three Celtic deities at a time when Celtic tribes were facing the looming threat of invasion by the Roman Empire around 60 AD. In moments when war draws near, faith and fear can intertwine in ways that drive people to do things we can barely comprehend today. And so, this young man, who may once have lived a privileged life, respected and secure, became a sacrificial offering in a terrifying ritual. His body cast into the cold bog, as a message to the divine. Even to this day, the mystery of how his body remained so perfectly preserved is not fully understood. But perhaps the most haunting part of all is not how he died. It's the possibility that his death was sealed the very moment he picked that burnt piece of bread. The ancient world was truly a frightening place, wasn't it? So let me ask you this. If you had the chance to travel back in time, would you dare to go? DNA from a 2,000-year-old mummy reveals a deadly virus. Hey, have you ever heard of lice? Now, have you ever imagined that something as tiny and unpleasant as lice could carry the secrets of an entire ancient civilization? It sounds unbelievable, but those microscopic creatures are helping scientists uncover a chilling story, one that begins on the scalps of 2,000-year-old mummies. It all started when researchers analyzed DNA from mummies dating back roughly 1,500 to 2,000 years, belonging to the Ansilta culture in the San Juan region of western Argentina. At first, their goal was simple: to learn more about the origins and lives of these ancient people. But the deeper they dug, the more they realized that what they were uncovering was not just history, it was evidence of a mysterious epidemic. What makes this discovery especially fascinating is the method. Instead of extracting DNA from bones or teeth, as is traditionally done, scientists focused on lice eggs attached to strands of hair. Yes, you heard that right. When lice lay eggs, they secrete a kind of biological glue that firmly attaches the eggs to the hair. Over time, this glue becomes a remarkably effective storage medium, preserving human skin cells for thousands of years. Thanks to modern DNA sequencing technology, researchers were able not only to determine the sex of the mummies, but also to trace their migration patterns, from the distant Amazon rainforest to the harsh Andes mountains. It almost feels like a journey through time, doesn't it? But the story doesn't end there. As scientists dug deeper, they uncovered something far more unsettling. Within the DNA samples taken from the cement of lice eggs, they found traces of a virus known as Merkel cell polyomavirus, a virus associated with a rare but aggressive form of skin cancer. Yes, you heard that correctly. 2,000 years ago, long before humans had any understanding of bacteria or viruses, a dangerous pathogen like this was already present on their scalps. Even more concerning, researchers believe that lice may have acted as carriers, helping to spread this virus within ancient communities. So what makes this truly frightening? It's not just the virus itself, but the way it silently existed, hidden within something so small, going completely unnoticed until thousands of years later. And there's more. The position of the lice eggs on the hair revealed yet another chilling detail. Scientists found that the eggs were located extremely close to the scalp, a sign that the host had been living in extremely cold conditions before death. This detail acts like a final puzzle piece, suggesting just how harsh and unforgiving the environment may have been in the final days of these individuals' lives. From things that seem utterly insignificant, a louse, a microscopic egg, an entire historical picture begins to emerge. Migration routes, living conditions, diseases, and even the invisible threats these people once faced. Researchers have also noted that the DNA extracted from the glue of lice eggs is not only abundant, but often of higher quality than DNA obtained from bones or teeth. This opens up an entirely new direction in scientific research, less invasive, yet far more informative than ever before. Hearing all of this, you might start looking at the smallest things around you a little differently, right? Because sometimes, the greatest secrets of history aren't hidden inside massive pyramids or grand tombs, but in the things we tend to overlook, like a tiny louse clinging to the hair of someone who lived thousands of years ago. Fascinating and just a little terrifying, isn't it? DNA from skeletal remains in an ancient tomb in England reveals the family tree of one of humanity's oldest lineages. What would you think if I told you that nearly 6,000 years ago, when humans were still living in the Stone Age, with no writing and no recorded history, today using only the DNA preserved in bones and teeth, scientists have been able to reconstruct an entire, detailed family tree of an ancient lineage? It may sound unbelievable, right? But that is exactly what has been revealed from a massive ancient tomb in England. This tomb is anything but ordinary. Located in the Cotswold Severn region, it has a distinctive L-shaped structure and contains the remains of up to 35 individuals buried around 5,700 years ago. At first, it was thought to be nothing more than a communal burial site, but as deeper analysis was conducted, things gradually became more unusual. And soon, a multi-generational family story began to emerge with astonishing clarity. Specifically, scientists from several major universities, including Newcastle, the Basque Country, Vienna, and Harvard, worked together to analyze DNA from the bones and teeth of the remains. The results even surprised them. At least 27 out of the 35 individuals were biologically related. In other words, this was not a random group of people, but an entire lineage buried together across multiple generations. And the most fascinating detail lies at the top of this family tree. All 27 individuals could be traced back to a single man, the patriarch of the lineage, and his 4 wives. From there, successive generations followed, forming a family structure far more complex than what we once imagined about Stone Age societies. But the story doesn't end there. When researchers examined the burial arrangement more closely, they noticed something rather unusual. Male and female remains were placed in separate areas within the tomb. Most of the space was reserved for males, who were typically buried alongside their brothers. Meanwhile, the area for females was significantly smaller, and notably, there were very few female remains from later generations. That sounds unusual, doesn't it? But the explanation is remarkably logical. According to scientists, women at that time, once married, would be buried with their husband's family after death. This means that only unmarried daughters, often those who died young, would be buried in their parents' tomb. And indeed, in the female section, 2 juvenile remains were discovered. So what about those who were not biologically related? Among the 8 outsiders, 3 were women believed to have married into the family. It's possible that they had no children or only daughters, who later married and were buried elsewhere. Sound familiar? It's a family pattern that, upon closer look, resembles many later cultures. In fact, this tomb reveals something even more surprising. Their concept of family was not as primitive as we might assume. There is evidence that children who were not biologically related to the male head of the family, possibly stepchildren, were still accepted, raised, and buried as full members of the lineage. This suggests a socially cohesive and flexible understanding of family that is far from simple. Dr. Chris Fowler from Newcastle University even stated that this discovery offers an unprecedented perspective on family structures during the Neolithic period. More importantly, this is the oldest family tree ever reconstructed using DNA analysis. You see, from bones that have lain silent for thousands of years, modern humans are now able to hear stories about kinship, marriage, and the social rules of our ancestors. Perhaps the most astonishing thing is not the technology, but the realization that, despite being separated by thousands of years, ancient humans and we today share more similarities than we ever expected. So, do you see what I'm seeing? Or do you have a different perspective on this? Don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Let's discuss it together. 60 mummies sealed. Inside a rocky mountain reveal a blood-soaked secret buried for 4,000 years. Just imagine this. One day, you step into an ancient cliff in Egypt. In front of you is a pitch-dark entrance leading down into a long, winding labyrinth beneath the earth. And as you venture deeper inside, what appears before you is not treasure, nor statues of gods, but dozens of mummies piled on top of one another, all bearing horrific wounds. How do you think you would feel in that moment? Just hearing it is enough to send chills down your spine, right? Well, I bet you'll feel even more unsettled when you hear the story I'm about to tell, about these 60 mummies in Egypt. This story begins more than 4,000 years ago, in a region near Luxor, once the center of power in ancient Egypt. There, archaeologists discovered a very unusual tomb at Deir el-Bahari, located on the west bank of the Nile River. What makes this tomb so strange is that it is unlike any other burial site from that period. Instead of being buried individually with formal rituals, dozens of bodies here were placed together in a single space, as if they had been sealed together forever. In fact, this tomb was first discovered in 1923, but it was quickly sealed shut afterward. It wasn't until recently, when scientists returned to study it, that a terrifying truth began to emerge. Inside lies a complex tunnel system about 200 feet long, cutting deep into the rock like a maze. And at the end of these tunnels is a chamber filled with mummies. All of them are men, and their deaths were anything but natural. Upon close examination, researchers found clear signs of extreme violence: shattered skulls, puncture wounds, and even arrows still lodged in their bodies. Some mummies show evidence of being attacked with sharp weapons in close combat. One individual was even found wearing a specialized glove, the kind typically used by archers. This suggests that these were not ordinary civilians, but real warriors. So just think, what could have happened to cause around 60 men to die at the same time under such horrific circumstances? The answer lies in the very period they lived in. Around 2150 BC, Egypt entered one of its darkest eras, a time when central authority weakened, society fell into chaos, and civil wars began to erupt. What was once a powerful empire became fractured as local factions fought for control. However, evidence from the tomb of Pharaoh Pepi II, a king who ruled for nearly 90 years, reveals a disturbing paradox. His tomb was built on a grand scale, indicating that the early part of his reign was still prosperous. But after his death, the tomb was looted. And in ancient Egyptian culture, that was an act of extreme disrespect, something that was almost unthinkable unless society had completely lost control. War was not the only factor pushing society to the brink. Famine also played a devastating role. Prolonged droughts led to failed harvests and severe food shortages. Some ancient texts even describe horrifying scenes that are hard to believe. People, driven by starvation, turned to killing and even cannibalizing one another. At this point, you can probably begin to understand why those 60 mummies were found together in a single tomb. They were not only victims of war, but also the result of a collapsing society, one where people were pushed to their limits, forced to fight and kill just to survive. Archaeologist Salima Ikram, who directly studied the mummies, even remarked, "They died in an incredibly horrific way." And truly, every wound on their bodies is like a fragment of a larger story, one that reveals one of the darkest chapters in ancient Egyptian history. So here's a question for you. If you were the one stepping into that chamber, standing among 60 mummies marked by violent deaths, what would you feel? Fear or curiosity to uncover the secrets they have carried for thousands of years? As for me, to be honest, even though I would feel a bit afraid, I would still want to go deeper to find out what really happened. 40 mummies from a single family, buried beneath the sands of Egypt for 2,000 years. An entire extended family lay silent beneath the earth for 2,000 years, from adults to children, all buried together in deep underground chambers. That is exactly what archaeologists uncovered in Egypt, a land that never ceases to spark curiosity with its endless mysteries. The discovery took place in Minya province, located south of Cairo, Egypt. There, archaeologists found an ancient burial complex containing around 40 mummies resting inside dark underground chambers. What startled everyone was this: it was not a random burial site, but most likely the final resting place of an entire family spanning multiple generations. According to initial analysis, this extended family may have lived during the Ptolemaic period, the early Roman period, or even into the Byzantine era. In other words, they lived during a time of great historical transition, when Egypt was no longer fully independent and was influenced by multiple civilizations. But here's what makes it even more intriguing. These were not nobles or royalty, as we often see in movies about ancient Egypt. Researchers believe they were a middle-class family, ordinary people in ancient society, and yet, the way they were buried was remarkably careful and ritualistic, raising an important question. What was their life really like when they were alive? As archaeologists ventured deeper into the burial chambers, what they found was not just mummies, but an entire treasure trove of history. The coffins, painted in vibrant colors, remain astonishingly well preserved. Alongside them were pottery and papyrus, items closely tied to everyday life in ancient Egypt. Altogether, they seem to be telling a story that time itself tried to bury. And do you know what particularly caught the attention of researchers? Among the 40 mummies, at least 10 were children. Just hearing that already feels unusual, doesn't it? Why were so many children buried together in the same place? Could this be a sign of some tragic event that once affected this family? But that's not all. Some of the mummies were decorated with ancient inscriptions, what some people dramatically refer to as the handwriting of demons. It may sound frightening, but in reality, it was simply a form of ancient Egyptian script commonly used in daily life. These inscriptions could be the key to helping scientists better understand the identities, occupations, and even life stories of each individual in this family. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is its modern context. In recent years, Egypt has continuously announced new archaeological discoveries, as if layers of sand are gradually revealing secrets buried for thousands of years. And behind these efforts lies not only science and history, but also a push to revive tourism, an essential part of the country's economy. But returning to this 2,000-year-old family, have you ever wondered how they lived, what they went through, and why they all ended up resting together in this place? Was it a simple yet closely bonded life, or a tragedy that history never had the chance to record? Perhaps these are questions that still remain unanswered. But as you can see, the more we explore and analyze, the more we realize that these silent mummies are not truly dead. They are still telling their stories, just in a way that requires patience for us to truly listen. A sea monster fossil found at an elevation of 8,860 feet. What do you think you would see if you were standing on a snow-covered peak in the Alps with freezing winds blowing and nothing around you but rock and ice? It's hard to imagine, right? But for scientists, the reality was far more extraordinary. Beneath their feet, they discovered fossils of a massive sea monster, tens of feet long, that once ruled the oceans more than 200 million years ago. Yes, you heard that right. A real giant sea monster. The story began when a research team led by paleontologist Martin Sander from the University of Bonn, Germany, conducted an expedition on this mountain peak. There, they uncovered 3 remarkable fossils dating back around 205 million years, during the Triassic period, a time when Earth was filled with strange and fascinating creatures. These fossils belong to ichthyosaurs, often called fish lizards, one of the most formidable marine reptiles to have ever existed. The name alone sounds both familiar and strange, doesn't it? In reality, they were neither fish nor whales. On the outside, they resembled whales, with long snouts and streamlined bodies built for speed in the water. But on the inside, they were reptiles, distant relatives of dinosaurs. This unusual combination made them highly efficient predators in the ancient oceans. The 3 fossils were found scattered across different locations in the Alps. 2 of them included ribs and vertebrae, and based on computational models, scientists estimate that these creatures measured about 49 feet and 69 feet in length when alive. That already sounds enormous, but the 3rd specimen is what truly left everyone in awe. Only a single tooth remained. But don't underestimate it. This tooth alone measured about 6 inches in length and 2.4 inches in width. From its size, researchers inferred that the animal could have reached up to 177 feet in length, comparable to a high-rise building laid horizontally beneath the sea. For comparison, a previously described complete ichthyosaur fossil measuring 59 feet had teeth only about 0.8 inches wide. That makes this new tooth compelling evidence of a truly unprecedented giant. These sea dragons were far from gentle. They were apex predators, capable of hunting large fish, giant squid, and even other marine reptiles. The oceans of the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods were true battlegrounds, and ichthyosaurs were among the most terrifying rulers of them all. But perhaps the most intriguing question is this: why were the fossils of a marine creature found on a mountaintop? The answer lies within the Earth itself. Hundreds of millions of years ago, what is now the Alps was once the ocean floor. Over time, tectonic plates shifted, collided, and pushed these ancient seabeds upward, forming mountains. Along with them, the remains of long-buried marine creatures were lifted as well, like a natural time machine. In other words, every rock on a mountaintop today may once have rested deep beneath the ocean. And those ancient sea dragons, after 205 million years, have surfaced once again, almost as if they had never truly disappeared. A solitary tomb, as tall as a 4-story building in the desert, an unfinished masterpiece that astonishes the world. Did you know that in the middle of a barren desert, where sand-laden winds blow day and night and human footprints are rarely seen, there exists a structure so unusual that anyone who lays eyes on it is left standing in awe? It is not a pyramid nor a palace, but a massive tomb carved directly into a massive rock formation, standing as tall as a 4-story building. And what makes it even more remarkable is its complete isolation in that vast open landscape. This structure is known as Qasr al-Farid, also intriguingly called the Lonely Castle. It is located within the ancient city of Madain Salah in northern Saudi Arabia, a place that was once an important center of an ancient civilization. From its name alone, many might assume it was a castle or a defensive fortress. But the truth is entirely different. Qasr al-Farid is actually a tomb, carved around the 1st century AD, and the most unusual thing about it is that it was never completed. If you observe the structure from a distance, the facade appears like a sculpture frozen in the middle of its creation. The upper portion is intricately carved, with precise, balanced, and highly artistic details. But as your eyes move downward, the surface becomes increasingly rough, as if the craftsman suddenly stopped, leaving the monument unfinished forever. Have you ever wondered why? According to researchers, ancient artisans carved the structure from top to bottom. This method allowed them to better control the overall shape and avoid damaging completed details. However, for some unknown reason, perhaps a sudden event, war, or a shift in power, the project was abandoned, leaving behind an unfinished story that has lasted for more than 2,000 years. But don't think Qasr al-Farid is a unique case. In fact, it is just one part of a much larger complex of 111 tombs in the Madain Salih area. Among them, 94 tombs are decorated with incredibly intricate carvings and patterns, showcasing the remarkable artistic skill of ancient craftsmen. Because of its immense historical and cultural value, the entire site was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 2008. Yet, among all these monuments, Qasr al-Farid stands out in a very unique way. It stands alone, separate from any cluster of tombs, as if telling a story that no one fully remembers anymore. Perhaps it is precisely this loneliness that makes it so captivating. Just think about it. In such a harsh desert environment where survival itself is a constant struggle, people were still able to create structures of such scale and intricate detail. Doesn't that speak to their extraordinary stone carving skills and reflect a civilization that was once highly advanced and powerful? What's even more fascinating is that although this tomb was never completed, it is exactly this incompleteness that makes it so special. It feels like a story left unfinished, one that makes people even more curious, even more eager to discover what truly happened. Cemetery of millions of mummies in the desert, an unsolved mystery of ancient Egypt. In the middle of a vast desert, where sand stretches endlessly to the horizon, beneath what seems like an infinite layer of dunes lie millions of bodies that have remained still for thousands of years. Not dozens, not hundreds, but millions of mummies. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? Yet this is exactly what scientists have discovered at a site called Fag el Gamis, located in the Fayum Desert, about 60 miles south of Cairo. And as you might expect, from the moment it was announced, this discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, as its scale is almost unprecedented in history. Of course, what makes this cemetery so remarkable is not just the sheer number of burials, but the people who were laid to rest there. If you've ever heard of Egypt's famous tombs, those of powerful pharaohs, with kings elaborately mummified and placed in golden coffins, then the story at Fag el Gamis is completely different. Most of the mummies here belong to ordinary people, simple individuals who once lived, worked, and existed in ancient society. They were not buried in luxurious coffins, nor did they undergo complex mummification rituals. Instead, their bodies were simply wrapped in cloth and placed directly into the ground. It may sound modest, but this simplicity offers a very real glimpse into the life and death of everyday people in ancient Egypt. As archaeologists explored deeper into the cemetery, they realized that this area was once very different from what it is today. Thousands of years ago, the region around Fag el Gamis was fertile, home to thriving cities and even ancient pyramids. But over time, the land became desert, and all that remains now is sand, and the secrets buried beneath it. So far, researchers have excavated only about 1,700 mummies, a very small number compared to the site's true scale. And believe it or not, they estimate it may take at least 30 more years to fully uncover this place. That means countless stories are still lying beneath the sand, waiting to be told. One of the most fascinating aspects is how well the mummies have been preserved. Without the need for complex embalming techniques, the dry desert climate has naturally preserved their bodies for thousands of years. Some mummies have even been found with jewelry, personal belongings, and glass objects, like small memories carried into the afterlife. Among all these discoveries, one image in particular has deeply moved many people. It is the mummy of a baby girl, only about 18 months old, carefully wrapped in linen and buried with small pieces of jewelry. Even after more than 1,000 years, The way she was laid to rest clearly shows that her family's love for her never faded. In addition, scientists have discovered some mummies with unusually large body sizes, such as one individual estimated to be about 6.5 feet tall. This raises many questions. Could this be evidence of a distinct group of people, or simply natural variation within a large population? Of course, these questions remain unanswered. But as you can see, the more Fagelgamus is explored, the more mysterious it becomes. Each mummy is an untold story. Each layer of sand that is uncovered reveals another piece of the past. And perhaps what makes this place so captivating is not just the number in the millions, but the fact that behind each of those individuals once existed a life, a family, and an entire world that we are still trying to understand, little by little, every day. Ghost ship containing the remains of a 1,200-year-old Viking queen. An ordinary field, one that farmers had plowed for decades. Yet beneath that layer of soil lay a massive ship, about 62 feet long, resting silently for more than 1,200 years. No one saw it, no one touched it, until modern technology looked beneath the ground and uncovered a secret that left the entire archaeological world stunned. That is exactly what archaeologists from the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research discovered at Yellestad, in the southeastern region of Oslo, Norway. During the excavation, they did not begin by digging as in traditional archaeological digs. Instead, they used ground-penetrating radar, a technology that allows researchers to scan what lies beneath the surface without disturbing it. And it was this very technology that revealed the image of an ancient ship hidden beneath what seemed like a completely ordinary field. The ship is estimated to date from around 750 to 850 AD, placing it firmly within the Viking Age. Measuring up to 62 feet in length, it was not just a vessel, it was also a tomb. At first that might sound unusual. Why would ancient people use a ship as a burial site? But for the Vikings, this was a deeply meaningful ritual. They believed the ship would carry the deceased on their final journey into the afterlife. And not everyone was granted such an honor. Only individuals of high status, such as nobles, great warriors, or powerful leaders, were buried in this way. And this is likely what makes this ghost ship so mysterious. It does not stand alone. Surrounding the site is an entire ancient cemetery with at least 20 other graves. Nearby is also a well-known burial site called Gel Mound, which dates even earlier, from around 400 to 500 AD. Together, these form a complex that suggests this area was once an important center of a powerful Viking community. Based on the ship's size and structure, archaeologists believe the person buried inside was no ordinary individual. It could have been a powerful queen, a king, or a renowned warrior respected by the entire community. Although the exact identity has yet to be confirmed, all evidence points to someone of extremely high status in that society. What's particularly fascinating is that despite lying underground for over a millennium, the ship remains remarkably well preserved. Initial surveys show that much of its structure is still intact to an astonishing degree. While it is not yet clear whether it was a sailing ship or a rowing vessel, Viking shipbuilding techniques were already famous worldwide, and this discovery may help us better understand their craftsmanship. Researchers believe that a ship burial of this kind, especially one surrounded by multiple graves, is a clear expression of wealth, power, and social connection during the Scandinavian Iron Age. It was not just a resting place, but a statement of the deceased's status. In the near future, this ghost ship will be carefully excavated and reconstructed, allowing modern audiences to witness a remarkable piece of Viking heritage firsthand. Until then, let's wait and see who exactly lies within this ship tomb and what extraordinary identity they may reveal. 3,000-year-old horse-drawn chariot inlaid with thousands of turquoise pieces. Next, we explore an extraordinary archaeological discovery from China. A nearly 3,000-year-old bronze horse-drawn chariot that has been successfully excavated and reconstructed, marking a major step forward in understanding the ancient civilization of the Western Zhou period. The story begins at the Zhouyuan archaeological site, located in Xiashan village, northwest of Shanxi province, China. There, archaeologists from the Shanxi Institute of Archaeology uncovered a remarkable artifact in 2017. At first, they saw only scattered traces, thousands of fragments buried for millennia. But through experience and persistence, experts quickly realized They were standing before one of the most important discoveries in Chinese archaeology, a bronze chariot from the Western Zhou dynasty, dating from around 1046 to 771 BC. But that wasn't all. During the excavation, the research team also discovered the skeletons of 4 horses lying near the chariot, indicating that they were the very animals that once pulled it in ancient times. DNA analysis showed that these were purebred, fully grown horses that had been carefully cared for, reflecting the high status of the chariot's owner. The reconstruction process became like assembling a massive puzzle. After carefully cleaning each bronze fragment, archaeologists painstakingly restored every detail and feature. The result did not disappoint. The chariot emerged in impressive size, about 10.3 feet long, 8.9 feet wide, and 4.9 feet high. Its structure is primarily made of bronze, but the most breathtaking aspect is its decoration. Thousands of turquoise and jade pieces intricately inlaid, along with finely crafted animal motifs and some painted components. According to researcher Wang Zhangkui, marks found on the wheels suggest that the chariot was rarely used. It was not a typical war chariot, but rather a ceremonial vehicle reserved for high-ranking nobles of the Western Zhou dynasty. For that reason, craftsmanship, beauty, and luxury were prioritized over practicality. Another notable detail, shared by expert Huang Xiaohuan, is the turquoise inlay. These hundreds of gemstones not only enhance the chariot's visual appeal, but also provide valuable data that helps archaeologists better understand ancient craftsmanship and aesthetic values. Thanks to this, the chariot is not merely a means of transportation, it is a work of art, a symbol of power and social status during the Western Zhou period. As of now, this is only the second horse-drawn chariot ever discovered, excavated, and successfully reconstructed, and the only intact bronze chariot of its kind in China. The restoration process has been completed, and in the near future, the archaeological team plans to reconstruct the full original structure to create a complete model, just as it existed nearly 3 millennia ago. The artifact is expected to be displayed at the Shanxi Archaeology Museum, where it will be open to the public and visitors from around the world, offering a chance to witness a treasure that holds not only archaeological value, but also represents the peak of cultural, artistic, and technological development during the glorious Western Zhou era. If you love history, don't miss the opportunity to see a timeless masterpiece like this with your own eyes. 2.6-mile Aboriginal figure in the Australian desert. After 20 years, the creator remains unknown. Did you know that our mysterious world is full of enigmas that don't come from some distant past thousands of years ago, but instead appear right in the modern era, right before our eyes, so clear that they cannot be denied, yet still impossible to explain? The Marree man is one such story. It all began with a chance moment in 1998. During a flight over the southern Australian desert, pilot Trevor Wright suddenly looked down and spotted a strange shape stretching across the ground. It wasn't natural rock or sand, it was clearly the figure of a human, deeply etched into the desert, posed as if holding a stick, possibly a boomerang. That single discovery sparked a search that has lasted more than 20 years and still has no conclusion. As you may know, most giant ground drawings we've heard of come from ancient civilizations, remnants of a distant past. But the Marree man is completely different. It isn't ancient, it appears to have been created in modern times. And that makes the question, who made it, more difficult than ever to answer. The sheer size of this figure is astonishing. It stretches about 2.6 miles in length, with a perimeter of roughly 17.4 miles. That means if you stand on the ground, you would never be able to see its full shape. It only truly reveals itself from above, as if it were created specifically for eyes in the sky. And to create something of this scale, ordinary human effort wouldn't be enough. Whoever made it must have had a deep understanding of mapping, coordinates, and possibly even used satellite technology to align every detail. Yet strangely, no one has ever come forward to claim responsibility. Shortly after its discovery, a series of press releases were sent out. However, what caught people's attention was that the writing style didn't match typical Australian English. This led to speculation. Could it have been the work of an anonymous group from the United States? The mystery deepened in 1999, when a strange fax was sent to authorities claiming that an object was buried near the head of the figure. When excavated, they found an American flag, an Olympic symbol, and a quote from a book about Aboriginal hunting techniques. It sounded like a clue, but not enough to identify anyone. Some even suggested that the creator might have been Bardius Goldberg, an Australian artist. But ironically, he passed away before the truth could be confirmed. And from that point on, every theory seemed to hit a dead end. Over the years, this massive figure has faced the erosion of time. Desert winds have gradually worn away lines that were once clearly visible. Facing the risk of disappearance, local authorities and residents took action. In 2016, they carried out a 5-day restoration effort to preserve the figure, keeping the mystery alive for the future. Yet even after restoration, the biggest question remains: who created it and why? At one point, Dick Smith, a well-known Australian entrepreneur, even offered a $5,000 reward to anyone who could solve the mystery, a challenge not only for scientists but for anyone curious about the world. So perhaps what makes the Marree Man truly special is not just its enormous size, but the silence surrounding it. No clear traces, no explanation, no one claiming responsibility, as if it was created and then abandoned, left behind to challenge human curiosity year after year. You see, perhaps what makes archaeological discoveries so captivating is not just what has already been found, but the mysteries that still lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting for the day they are revealed. Each discovery is a story. Every trace is a reminder that the past is still quietly speaking in its own way. So if you find yourself curious and drawn into these unsolved mysteries, don't forget to join me on future journeys of discovery by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications, so you won't miss the most fascinating and mysterious stories from around the world. For now, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.